So let's do this then, Tamatha, if you're cool with that. I
Yep.
want to go to your Instagram. I think this is from yesterday, where
Yeah.
you put up a post that says, just going to be straight up, there's never been an issue that has affected me more emotionally than our youth justice system and the rangatahi in it. I listen to days of submissions on the boot camp bill or the ram raids bill, and I go home and bawl my eyes out. You go on in the post to say, I'm working on a policy piece right now that will outline what an alternative to boot camps and youth prisons could look like.
Mm.
Please tell us what your plans are.
Okay, so I don't want to talk about it too much because my plan is to develop it with rangatahi, especially those
Okay.
who might find themselves in a youth justice residence or come from a community or come from a place where the determinants of whether someone, commits a crime as a young person exist. So just want to kind of preface it with that
Yep.
first.
Sure.
But the policy piece is basically, if you look at the kind of outcomes of these boot camps, right, they've got some super flimsy outcome where they're like, every young person that does a military style academy will come out with a bank account number and a license and all of these things, which you do not need to spend that much money. You do not need to spend that much money to support a young person to do those things. But anyway, um, what I want to show is there's this thing that is the quite kind of core focus of my mahi when you look at it collectively, and it's this like state care to prison pipeline that a lot of Maori,
Mm.
but a lot of people that are disabled, people who are poor, end up in, and it's like they're born into poverty, they experience family violence or just abject poverty. In that case, they're uplifted from their families. They end up in the state care system. After that state care system, they end up in a youth justice residence. I think the stat is like 70% of young people in the youth justice residences have got had spent time within the state care system. They end up in the youth justice system where their criminality grows because of the environment that they're in. And then that leads to prison, time in and out of prison. And quite often that also leads to people joining gangs. And then it's just that repeated cycle of recidivism, incarceration, and it just goes on and on and on. So if that's the state care to prison pipeline, what does an alternative to that lifespan look like? And so I want to
Yep.
go right from the moment that the mother knows that she's having a baby, what kind of care and support does she need to make sure that when that baby comes into the world, they have all the support that they need? And then that child as a baby, what kind of supports do they need throughout their life in order to not fall into the system? And it's quite simple things. Like, one example is fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, right? That's not even acknowledged
Mhm.
as a disability in this country. So kids who are
Oh,
born with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, they get no support because it's not seen as a disability, despite the fact it impacts every aspect of their life, the way that they
for
make
sure.
decisions, the way that they process their emotions, the way that they interact with other people. They get no support for that. And then they go to school where they struggle to learn, they struggle to interact with others sometimes, quite often. And then they end up getting expelled from school, excluded from school, and then that's that pathway. And we know that because most people in prison, like 90% of people that are in prison or youth justice residences, have got a disability. So the answer to the alternative to that must be making sure that people who are disabled have got access to getting diagnoses, to good health
Mm.
care that helps them and supports them through their education, through their childhood. And then that is what will prevent crime and these pathways that young people go down when they have literally no support in their life. So what steps? So there'll be like lots of different little pieces to that policy piece. It will be things like proper diagnoses of disabilities, proper healthcare to support those young people with those disabilities, access to education, making sure that when kids go to school, they're not exempted for playing up because they're disabled, making sure that families have livable incomes and benefits so that they're not having to trade off, uniforms for healthy food. It's like that holistic view of what any child in this country needs to live a decent life where they don't even look, they're not even tempted by crime or doing something naughty because they have got all of their basic needs covered. That's the kind
It,
of basis of that.
it sounds like it's I was going to say cradle to grave, but if you in utero, it's pre-cradle to grave, way of looking after the people who need it. That's amazing. And when do you have a timeline? Like, you'd like to have this out by, like, the foundation of this? When are you trying to get it done by?
I'm so starting the policy piece now, and have been thinking about it for the last 3 months, but only just now after this break, having the like mental space to start being more proactive. I know that it's going to be hard to get any coverage of anything until after the budget. So hoping to launch around June, but
Cool.
wanting to do something in South Auckland because my late colleague, Efessor Collins, he wrote his master's thesis on why young people and young brown people in South Auckland turn towards youth gangs. And so Efessor was always really passionate about like youth justice and making sure that people understand why young people might commit crime and what we can do alternatively to help them turn their lives around. And so I want to launch that policy piece in South Auckland, where I was born as well, and kind of commemorate his life and his expertise that he dedicated a big chunk of his life to as well. So that's that for now, but I'm real looking forward to it because we can't just be criticizing and attacking the government all the time. We actually have to be preparing things so that when we are in government, we can put them in place quickly and not waste all our time doing policy work when we're in government.